Real quickly, I want to make a point about that, Jack, talking about shadow IT. You can create a situation that you unintentionally don't realize. A friend of mine in the industry just signed up for a Claude Code Teams account. And one of the things, though, is that if anybody in his organization had been using their work email address to use Claude Code prior to that, that Teams account locks that account out and forces them to transfer over to the managed team organization one because it uses the same domain for everything. And he was like, yeah, I'm about to find out which of my people were doing this without me knowing it because they're about to get locked out of their accounts. You can create an unknown through actions that you didn't think had an intentional consequence.
Yeah, I'll pick on if this really unknown, right? If you're modeling this is I think Jack's classification. This is a known unknown, right? If you work in technology, right, or if you are leading an organization, you know that shadow whatever. I don't like the term either, Jack. You know that shadow whatever is a term, right? That is an ongoing challenge in your governance program, right? So when you are presenting to your board, right, you are defining your security program and you're saying, look, this is everything that we're doing, right? And we acknowledge that there is a shadow AI, or I'm going to say AI because we're talking about there is a shadow IT, shadow AI component that we're dealing with. The way that we are handling this is that our governance program is such that this shadow capability here, like I'm using hand pattern, this shadow capability here does not materially impact our organization. If the shadow capability materially impacts your organization, I'm sorry, but you have bigger problems to worry about. I think that I go back to breaches that we've had in the past about whether it's the incident that happened with the SolarWinds, whether it's a CrowdStrike incident, right? These things they're not unknowns. SolarWinds maybe, but like you need to plan for these, right? You need to go on a whiteboard and, okay, what are the failure conditions that this can happen? You do second order thinking. Okay, if this fails, then what? If that fails, then what? That's part of building a more robust program. Sorry.
No, in one sense, I agree with you, Fernando. In the other sense, I think about it is that this is a flavor of both the unknown unknown and the known unknown, but it's also a flavor of how we think about things in traditional security versus zero trust, right? Which is what we're talking about here is some organizations are going to, like in zero trust, we assume breach. Some organizations are going to assume shadow IT is happening. And then they're going to say, given that it's happening, what do we do about it? And there are other organizations going to say, no, it isn't happening, or we've got a governance plan in place to prevent it from happening. And then when it does happen, they've got a problem, just like if you assume breaches never happen and then they happen, you've got a problem.